also missing. On Thursday, Essex police said the victims were believed to be Chinese. They now say it's a developing picture, and they have made this appeal to anyone who thinks their relatives may have died.
Good evening. I know you may be worried about speaking to the police, and I would like to reassure you that we just want to be able to give the victims' families answers about what has happened.
The work of removing the bodies and transporting them to hospital for post-mortem examinations continues. Essex police said they would not comment on what they called speculation about the nationalities of those who had tragically lost their lives. Andy Moore, BBC News.
Well, let's get more on that precise point, because I've been speaking to Tu Pan from the BBC's Vietnamese service about those text messages that some of the victims seem to have sent.
The messages were so hard-hitting. In particular, there's one from a 26-year-old lady called Phạm Thị Trà My. The text actually said, I'm really sorry, Mum and Dad, I'm very, very sorry. My trip to a foreign land has failed. I'm dying, I can't breathe. You know, it's really heartbreaking to read such messages. It
hurts to hear it again. But it also creates a sense that then she felt like a failure.
Yes, yeah. So in Vietnam, there's quite a lot of expectation for these people to come to a foreign land to find work and to send a lot of money back home to help out their relatives back in Vietnam. And these families, they pay tens of thousands of pounds, you know, to come to the UK or other countries to find work for a better life.
Well, do take a look at the website as well, bbc.com/news. We will update you there on all the developments as they come in through the course of the day, but also giving you an idea as to the process for identification. Also, how they do check these lorries in any case. Have a look on the website, bbc.com/news. The governor of the Chilean capital, Santiago, says more than 1 million people have been taking part in a peaceful march through the city. They're calling for measures to reduce inequality. Now, organisers say this is the biggest demonstration Chile has ever seen. It follows a week of often violent protests, as Rich Preston reports.
A week of anger on the streets of Chile. At least 16 people have been killed since protests began last Friday. Many more have been injured. Triggered by a rise in public transport fares, these protests have turned into a mass movement against poverty and inequality. More than 500,000 people turned out on Friday in Santiago, filling the streets of the capital. Allegations of rights abuses by security forces have prompted the United Nations to say it will send a team of investigators to the country.
We have received reports that 18 people have died, including a 4-year-old child. The circumstances are unclear. And we've received reports that 582 people have been wounded, of which 295 by live ammunition.
As night fell, it wasn't long before tensions rose once again. President Sebastián Piñera has announced reforms in an attempt to appease protesters, but those on the streets say they won't stop until they see real change. Rich Preston, BBC News.
OK, let's just bring you up to date with some other stories making news around the world now. The Pentagon has awarded a $10 billion cloud computing contract to Microsoft after a heavily scrutinised bidding process in which Amazon have been seen as the favourite. Amazon said it was surprised about the decision. President Trump has been a vocal critic of Amazon and its founder, Jeff Bezos. The opposition movement in Bolivia has staged another mass rally in the city of Santa Cruz de la Sierra. It follows the electoral authorities' decision to declare President Evo Morales the winner of last week's polls. He beat his closest rival Carlos Mesa by 10.6 percentage points. Now that is just enough to avoid a runoff in December. Millions of Californians face having their power cut as the emergency services continue to fight two rapidly spreading wildfires in the state. Earlier, the governor of California declared a state of emergency in the counties of Sonoma and Los Angeles because of those fires. He also accused the power companies of failing to conduct routine maintenance and putting profits before people. Argentinians go to the polls on Sunday to choose their next president. After shock primaries earlier in the year, the populist figure Alberto Fernandez is expected to win against President Macri, who's been blamed for worsening the country's economic performance. From Buenos Aires, our South America correspondent Katie Watson reports.
There's no clearer sign of crisis. Every week, this queue gets longer and longer. More people relying on charity to get themselves through the week. Every day, single mother Antonella waits in line at soup kitchens like these to feed her and her little boy.
I pick up my son from school every day and queue up for food. Before, I had a cleaning job, but they let me go. And this is my last resort. For me and lots of people. This isn't the only one. There are loads of places where people get given food. People get into fights for it.
Ariel walks the streets every day looking for work and picking up odd jobs if he can. I have to pay rent but have no means to buy food, he says. So it's no coincidence they're queuing up outside Congress. Organisers are making a point. Politicians need to do something about it.
The biggest issue on voters' minds is the economy. Inflation's around 50%. 1 in 3 people here now live in poverty. Question is, which candidate is going to pull the country out of the crisis? Do they stick with Liberal Macri or return to populism once again?
Much of the appeal of frontrunner Alberto Fernandez is this woman. Former President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner is a divisive figure with a huge following, but accused by her opponents as corrupt and economically irresponsible. Meanwhile, under President Macri, a man who claimed he was business-friendly, Argentina's peso has plummeted and the crisis has only got worse. Facundo y Segundo run this small business, creating locally designed products. With rising inflation, it's hard to earn a profit. It's not been easy since they started 9 years ago.
I worry about what will happen with us after Sunday. We like a lot of the Macri politics because it's transparent. We believe in those kind of politics, but the truth is that when we were with Cristina before, everything was a little bit more stable, but it was fake, maybe. We don't know. It's difficult, the politics in Argentina.
While many Argentines are divided over politics, others just want this all to be over.
Lo más importante para mí es la estabilidad.
The most important thing is stability. I'm 61 years old and I've been through dictatorship, everything. What I hope is that at some point we leave this cycle of stagnation, poverty, and that we have the model of country we all want.
Sunday's vote could change the direction of Argentina, and for many, they hope their fate too. Katie Watson, BBC News in Buenos Aires.
Now, the funeral's taken place of Elijah Cummings, the US Democratic congressman who died last week. Among those speaking at the service were 2 former presidents as they paid tribute to a man described as a fierce champion of truth, justice and kindness. Here's Tim.
Washington had already honoured Elijah, the first African-American lawmaker to lie in state in the capital. But it was in Baltimore, his hometown, where he would be laid to rest. US servicemen draping his coffin in the American flag. Family, friends, colleagues, speaking of a man who always put others first.
No matter how hard he fought and how passionately he argued, he tried to treat everybody the way he wanted to be treated, the way he thought America should be treated.
The son of sharecroppers, he fought for civil rights, and he lived to see an African American elected to the White House.
Elijah Cummings was a man of noble and good heart. The Lord has now called Elijah home to give his humble, faithful servant rest.
America is, in so many ways, a divided country, perhaps now more than ever. But in remembering Elijah Cummings, this was one of those moments when the division seemed a little less stark. Tim Allman, BBC News.
Now, the name Greta Thunberg has become very familiar to many of us very quickly, of course. Well, the Natural History Museum here in London has chosen to name a species of beetle after the climate activist. Here it is. Neloptodes gretae was first discovered in Kenya back in the 60s. The scientist Michael Darby realised it didn't have a name, though. He was studying a collection, so he chose to name it in honour of the Swedish activist. Well, it's got underway for just 10 minutes or so again. England have started certainly the stronger. They've scored already, a converted try. So the score at the moment is 7-0. The winner will face either Wales or South Africa. They play off tomorrow and the final is a week after that. Still a long way to go, of course. That is the BBC World News for the moment. Just to say, do keep an eye on the website, bbc.com/news, as we keep you right up to date on the situation with regard to the lorry found in the east of London. 39 bodies found in a refrigerated unit on the back of that lorry. The investigations go on. Thanks for watching.
Hello, a change to colder weather is on the way across some parts of Europe in the coming days. Right now, from this area of cloud and all just ribboning up towards the British Isles, there is a lot of rain falling here with flooding in places, weather warnings in force as well. That gradually slips away southwards during Saturday. More parts of the UK break into the sunshine. But as it moves southwards across other parts of Europe, it's that colder air following on behind that we will notice. But ahead of that, there's still lots of warmth to be found down towards southeastern parts of Europe, all quiet here. But much more importantly, it's a lot quieter now through Italy, through France, through Spain, compared with recent days. We're taking a bit of a break. That said, Sicily could still see a few thundery downpours during Saturday. This area of cloud and rain then will pull away from the UK as we go into Sunday. It's stretching off towards Finland. As you can see, it is moving south. Behind that, the wind arrows indicating the cooler air coming. So we're going to notice a change in Paris, Berlin, Warsaw, Moscow. All of these locations have cooler weather to come. And it's already there into London on Sunday. But the big difference here after the rain is that there will be plenty of sunshine around. Cooling down in Paris, Rome, well, the drier spell doesn't maybe last too long. We could well see some downpours developing again into next week. Look at these temperature changes getting down into single figures again in Berlin and Moscow.
Making every journey personal. Singapore Airlines, a great way to fly.
Across the globe, people have come to rely on an array of products, from bicycles to whiskey, spices to semiconductors.
The phone has made my job very easy.
This series looks at the people, systems and networks that go into making and bringing them to market.
We're spreading the knowledge and the technology across the globe.
Made on Earth on BBC World News.
You're watching BBC World News.
Forced human displacement is higher than it's ever been in modern history. And so we're going to the places and meeting the faces to find out how it's changing our world. These are the people trying to find a home. This is the displaced.
We cannot allow for a runaway climate change.
The consequences of this on coastal communities and ecosystems would be catastrophic.
The Mekong Delta is the agricultural heartland of Vietnam. but due to climate change, there have been some drastic changes for some people to leave. Vietnam is one of the most vulnerable countries in the world to climate change, the Mekong Delta in particular. It's not hard to see why. It's crossed by a vast network of rivers, has a long coast, and is low-lying. In 2016, Vietnam's Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development found that in some areas, 30 to 100 metres of coastal land each year could be lost to erosion. There used to be 2 houses where you can see this open space of water. In July, they crumbled into the river due to erosion. You can see further cracks here, and you can see these sandbags that have been put in place to try and protect the houses. Now further down here, the couple have created a temporary home because they are nervous that the house is going to collapse into the river.
Ở đây thì thời tiết thì nó cũng thay đổi rồi, thiên tai mà. Dưới dòng chảy bây giờ nó xoáy về bên đây nhiều lắm. Bây giờ nó xoáy mòn, nó sụp mình không hay. Không có thấy răng nứt gì chứ mà nó sụp.
Có mình anh tôi nó trống hả? Có mình anh tôi nó trống hả? Mình anh
nghe nó sụp nó mới chạy ra sụp thêm cái nữa.
Tôi lội ra thì tới đây rồi.
Mất.
Rễ nó kéo lên được thì cái nhà mất tiêu rồi.
It must be quite scary for people knowing that this has happened to you.
Ban đêm ngồi đâu dám ngủ, giờ đâu có dám ngủ nhà, ra cái trái rồi đó ngủ luôn. Chạy trái ngủ. Chắc nữa phải khỏe lại là phải dời vô tuốt ở trong sao mới được, chứ không dám cất gần nữa. Vô trong xa chút, ở gần cái sông cũng sợ lắm.
18 million people live in the Mekong Delta, but 1.3 million people left the Delta region in the last 10 years. Less than 300,000 arrived. A study at a Vietnamese university found that 15% of those leaving had moved because of climate change, but this number could be far higher.
If we want to separate who moving because of job, because of economy, or because of climate change, is really difficult. The impact of climate change is a lot. Dry and high temperature, landslide and flooding. But I think the most important that is salinity. It affect the agriculture activities. When they have no job and they have no money, then they have to move.
Do you suspect that thousands of more people over the coming years will leave the Mekong Delta because of climate change?
Yeah, if logically, then it should be, because the climate change is become more strong day by day.
Increasingly, local families who are unable to adapt or cope with the changes are forced to leave, moving to big cities like Can Tho or Ho Chi Minh.
Theo tôi nhớ thì cũng tầm khoảng 7-8 năm về đây nó cũng hơi bị nhiều hơn, chứ còn mấy năm trước thì có nhưng mà ít. Năm về trước mình sống cũng thoải mái, cũng bình thường vui vẻ, cũng làm ăn cũng được. Nhưng mà thời gian sau này nó có cái khó là dạng nước thì nó nãy cũng có nói là xâm mặn nó bị phèn, nó bị nhiễm. Ví dụ mình ở dưới đồng bằng thì mình trồng chọt cây trái nhà nông mà giống như nông nghiệp, rồi sau này nó nhiễm phèn nhiễm mặn rồi không có làm ăn được, làm ăn thua lỗ. Thành ra ở dưới thì khó sống, hiện tại ở dưới khó sống. Bây giờ mới chuyển lên đây làm bên ngành rửa xe này. Nói chung ra đây nó cũng trước khi lên đây thì nó cũng khó khăn chút xíu, nhưng mà sau thì cũng vậy. Mình lên trên này mình muốn kiếm một cái sự việc gì mình làm nó bước đầu thì nó hơi khó. Nói chung ra mấy ngày đầu lên thì mình cũng hơi khó chút, nhưng mà sau cái công việc mình ổn định rồi thì mình đã.
Your parents still live in the Mekong Delta. Are you worried about that?
Nói chung ra cha mẹ còn sống dưới thì cũng phải lo chứ. Bởi vì cái tình trạng bây giờ hiện tại là nó sẽ sạt lở mé nhà thì cũng còn gần ở đó, nhưng mà biết ngày nào nó sẽ lỡ vô. Nhưng mà dạ chứ thì cũng không kinh doanh được gì, những cây trái thì giờ nó cũng thất thu. Cũng tính làm thời gian thì cũng rước cái cha mẹ lên trên này làm trên này cho nó vững hơn.
And this is also part of the issue. Climate change hits the poorest the hardest. With food insecurity, low incomes and a lack of safe living conditions, they are the most vulnerable to changes. It's creating an impossible situation for some who, whilst feeling the pressure of climate change, can't find better prospects elsewhere.
năm thì mấy năm trước một năm làm được 3 vụ, rồi năm nay một năm làm được có 2 vụ mà không chắc ăn nữa. Rồi gia đình thì cũng như khi nào mà có ruộng lúa thì ở nhà này làm, còn không có thì ai muốn gì làm nấy.
Have you thought about moving to the city because of the impacts of climate change?
Tương lai thì giờ cũng ráng thì trồng cỏ rồi nuôi bò.
Chắc không có di chuyển, bị gì sống nông dân ở dưới quê thì sống nó quen rồi. Giờ nếu mà mình coi cái việc nào mà mình thích hợp với khí hậu á, với thời tiết đồ á, thì mình làm chứ giờ.
In the mix of current challenges, human factors make the effects all the more severe. Further up the Mekong Delta, a number of dams in other countries are directly impacting water levels and fish migration in Vietnam. The government is trying to help. They've created relocation programs for families in vulnerable areas. They've also put dikes in place to try and help mitigate the impact of flooding. But some local scientists are concerned the dikes are affecting the delta's ecosystem. So, what's being done about it?
I think we can start now. First, we have Dr. Long. I think you already know what he studies. He studies about the floods and dikes in Mekong Delta.
Thank you very much, Song. Yeah, today I would like to take some minutes to talk about an overview of the challenges related to climate change and also to water in the Mekong Delta.
I myself felt desperate about the situation. We have hope in this workshop because we believe that youth are the agent for change.
Lynn gathered students from across the country and Delta region for a workshop to learn about the environment and how to film. Experts come to give lectures and the students spend time in affected communities. By showing people in Vietnam the extent of the impact, she hopes people will take greater action to protect the region.
Their knowledge is not really deep. We need to raise their awareness to a higher level so that they can understand the problem. Think about it like a challenge and you will solve it, like the puzzle.
If we want to convince our parents to be more conscious about the environment, we need to do something ourselves first.
Because in the past we are very poor, we need more industry, so we don't care about environment. In the future, we need to balance.
Campaigns in general are just being done by youths.
How do you think older people feel about what you're doing?
Well, there are some people, they support us very positively, but some they take it for granted maybe, or they even think like we are crazy.
Really? Knowing that there are people in your country who don't take it as seriously despite the effect it's having, how does that make you feel?
I think we will just still willing to share what we are doing, to let them know that they are still us who want to help your life to be better.
This is such a big problem. Do you feel like you can make a difference?
Yeah, I mean, things starts from small changes, but at the same time, it requires the whole ecosystem to collaborate, from the governmental sector to the public.
Looking forward, climate scientists are also concerned about people who have fled the Delta. The cities also face pressure as temperatures rise, so the problem isn't going away. What happens here in Vietnam isn't unique. The World Bank estimates that over 140 million people could be internally displaced by 2050 because of climate change. Vietnam is both a warning and an example of how the world will have to adapt and change. Human displacement across the globe is higher than it's ever been in modern history. In 2018, more than 35,000 people were forced to flee their homes every day. That's 1 every 2 seconds, which has taken the global displaced population to a staggering record of 71 million people. So what's driving this? 1. War and conflict continues to be one of the main factors. 2/3 of refugees come from just 5 countries: Syria, Afghanistan, South Sudan, Myanmar and Somalia. Two, political displacement plays a big role. In the past year, the number of Venezuelan refugees increased by over 1 million. And of course, three, climate change. Rising sea levels, increasingly extreme weather patterns, and changing temperatures. The World Bank estimates that over 140 million people could be internally displaced by 2050 because of it. And so, in the past few months, I've visited some of the communities most affected. Venezuelans who have fled to the small island of Trinidad, the South Sudanese who have made a home in Uganda, and the people living in Vietnam's Mekong Delta who are on the front lines of climate change. Each country has its own context for why people have been uprooted, but at the heart of it all are the stories of millions of people who are trying to find a new home. Trinidad, a small Caribbean island with just over 1 million people. Recently though, there's been a rapid increase of thousands of Venezuelans fleeing here as a result of political and economic crisis back home. Trinidad is only 7 miles off the coast of Venezuela, making it one of the easiest places for people to reach.
Los jueces, Poder Judicial, el Consejo Nacional Electoral, gobernadores, que todo juegue a favor de ellos. Si hay uno que no juega a favor de ellos, te pueden matar, te pueden asesinar.
It sounds like to some level you have been stripped of your identity. How do you feel about the new identity that you have here in Trinidad?
Primero, un temor indescriptible, porque tú como cabeza de familia, como hombre, lanzarte al vacío, pero no eres el primero, ni eres el único. Entonces yo aposté a eso.
Plants capture CO2. What if industry captured it too? If industrial sites had technology that captured carbon as trees do, we could help lower Europe's emissions. Carbon capture is important technology, and experts agree. That's why we're working to improve it, so industry can do what plants do.
Making every journey personal. Singapore Airlines, a great way to fly.
The police are here. They haven't been for the last 12 hours or so, but they are now here. This is the response many were waiting for.
The destruction of this medieval symbol of Paris has left the city under a pall of shock and smoke.
Hunger breeds desperation. It's entirely understandable when people have gone for days without food.
Celebrations here are about more than just this election. Mr Modi's BJP party secured an historic landslide victory.
It may have been designed to damage rather than sink, but either way, it has sparked huge international tension.
We break stories from more places than any other international news broadcaster. We are the leaders in global breaking news.
They feel it's so important to be able to break as many barriers down as possible. Because a lot of people are frightened. You have to earn their trust.
High-end designer with high prices to match, or mass-produced for the high street market. Now on BBC World News, Babita Sharma and Finn Aberdeen explore the global production of handbags made on Earth.
Connecting people and possibilities. Made on Earth, delivered in association with FedEx.
Across the globe, from the most urban
to the most rural of places, people have come to rely on an array of products.
Behind each of these is an incredible tale of people.
This is the land of spices.
Systems.
There are 287 drivers. It's a matter of supply and demand.
And global networks.
I feel like we're spreading the knowledge and the technology across the globe.
Of worldwide shifts and changing trends.
The phone has made my job very easy.
要跟着时尚的潮流走，才能赚到钱。
That help us to help each other to thrive.
These are perfect, and they will have flown 4,000 miles to get here.
In this programme, we've been using them for centuries to carry our prized possessions. First, made for men.
This is from the 16th century. It's made out of very fine quality goat leather.
Today, they're a staple in many women's wardrobes. And some come with hefty price tags.
Maybe a couple thousand, because there's a couple up in that price point that I just find stunning.
One was always told to buy the best you could afford and keep it.
I have a Prada bag. It's very practical. Now, could I have gotten a less expensive one? Not the point.
It's a market that's long been dominated by Italian brands, steeped in history and using traditional techniques. But an industry that today is facing seismic change.
I have a lot of friends from different countries. We share information. That product in America might work for my customer in Australia.
This is the story of handbags and how a traditional